Okay. All right. So really warm welcome to everybody. Some very familiar faces to me and some new faces, which is fantastic. So wherever you are, whether you are roasting, boiling, being showered on, a very warm welcome to you all. So my name's Tim, and I'm the founder of the Wholehearted Leadership Network. And I'll take up these first 10 minutes just to put some context to what this is all about. Then what I'll do is I will bring Tim in, Tim Roberts, who's our guest speaker today, and I'll hand over to Tim. And then there will be a short learning exercise for you guys to do. I think we're doing that in breakout rooms. Is that right, Tim? There'll be a breakout room. So you don't necessarily have to have your camera on for that, although it does enhance the experience with the other person. But certainly need you to be present for that moment and available for that interaction. Then when we've done that, there will be some quick fire questions to Tim and opportunities for you to ask him some questions. And then we'll finish off with a little quiz. So the quiz is your way of winning 2 copies available, I think, of Tim's book today. So there'll be a little quiz at the end. And then I'll usually wrap it up with a story or a thought for the day, or maybe even a poem, just to kind of wrap it all up. So again, welcome. Great to have you here. I'm just going to share my screen. To put all of this in context. So I'll leave that screen there for you to just read, and I just want to talk through what is this really all about. So this was really born out of, I've been in leadership development for 15 years now. And I started to notice a few themes in that time. And I also, the last couple of years, I've just been looking out into the world, especially, and becoming disheartened by the leadership that I see in the world. And also becoming disheartened with leadership I see in organizations as well. Because what I really believe is that the world and its organization needs wholehearted leaders. So what does that really mean? What is it? So wholehearted leadership is a way of being in the world. It's a way of being present in the world. Part of it is the leader being willing to do what I call the inner work, the inner introspective work that frees them up from fear and frees them up from coming from a place of ego. And quite often that means you got to go back and start looking at some of these behavioral patterns that were adopted early in life. So this inner work starts looking at some of those behaviors that no longer serve you. But you might have had an experience where you're working for somebody who just doesn't want to go anywhere near that stuff. Quite often when people are coming from a space of fear and ego, they harm people around them. So leaders create harm around them. So the first part is to do the work, the introspective work. And this forum is an opportunity for you to engage with that in community with other people. So that's partly what this network's about. The other part of wholehearted leadership is the willingness to create psychological safety, not just the will, but the skill to create psychological safety for the team, for the group, the community with which you work. So what does psychological safety mean? Psychological safety is the willingness to say what you really think. The willingness to come up with an idea that might be against the crowd. Willingness to challenge those in power. So when leaders do that, when they create that space, psychological safety, people can rock up to work or in the world and show up as they really are, and perhaps even more of who they really are. And the third aspect of wholehearted leadership is creating culture around being heart-centered and purposeful. So heart-centered for me is very much about connection, ensuring that we are connected. And if you wanted just a quick, another snapshot of what the wholehearted leaders do, they choose courage over comfort. So the courage to have difficult conversations, the courage to be who you really are. They choose connection before credibility. So rather than having to prove your worth, prove how credible you are, they choose to connect first. They choose vulnerability and strength. So not just strength, the power of vulnerability. And they choose to be open-hearted, over armored. So much of what I talked about today and what this network is about is building on the work done by the giants who came before me, namely Brené Brown. If you haven't come across her work already, check it out. Brené Brown, incredible work on vulnerability and shame and any manner of emotions, and the importance of working through that and liberating yourself. So she's done amazing work. And also Patrick Lencioni, from his famous book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, which is very pioneering work. So I'm really standing on their shoulders today, and it's always important to acknowledge that. Well, that's a little bit about wholehearted leadership. And why do we need a network? I was talking to Tim earlier on this week, and we were just talking about our experiences of developing leaders in organizations. And I said to him, from my experience, there's always in a group, you get one or two who really get it. They really get what this is about, this wholehearted leadership, this leading in your own authentic way. They really get it. But then they go back and work in an organization that doesn't really get it, or for a leader that doesn't really value it. And so it's almost like the bubble gets burst or the stuffing gets knocked out of them. And so this network is specifically for people to continue their ongoing learning of how to show up as a wholehearted leader and learn from other people who are doing the same, so that you can take inspiration, encouragement, and a sense of community from that, which all gives you a sense of strength. So that's why we meet. Just before we do this check-in, actually, I just want to tell you a story of, for me, what wholehearted leadership in action looks like. Hello, people who just arrived. Nice to see you. Thanks for doing a great job there, my co-host, letting them in. So this story, this is something that happened, it's been happening over the last 2 weeks in an organization I'm working with in the North. And for me, what's been demonstrated there is real wholehearted leadership. So we're working through a specific model called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And the base layer of it is trust. How to build trusting relationships. And at the core of that is the willingness to be vulnerable. So there's an exercise, a process that I take a group through. Not straight away, but I kind of build them up to this. And this is a senior leadership team with exec members in there. And there's probably about 9 of them. And I get them to stand in circle. I get them to take a moment to just make eye contact with each of the people in that circle. And then I ask them to just check in with themselves and say, ask yourself, does this feel like a psychologically safe space for you? Does this feel like a psychologically safe space? And I really urge them to speak their truth. And then I ask the question and I step in and I say, join me in the middle if you believe this is a psychologically safe space. And of the 10 people, 1 person stepped in. And that person was the leader, which I think is very, very interesting. So it was such a powerful moment. See, it would have been easier for those people on the outside to just follow the leaders. Oh, they've gone in, I'm going in. But they didn't. They stood on the outside. And I thought that was very powerful because they spoke their truth. It was very powerful for the leader to see that. So often as leaders who are in the position of power, they assume there is psychological safety in the group because they feel safe. The reality is people don't because of their relationship with power, historical events, any manner of reasons. So it was such a powerful moment for the leader to recognize, wow, we've got work to do. We've got work to do here to build trust. So that was 2 weeks ago. Just yesterday, come back with that group. We've been looking at the next level up, which is conflict. How do we help people engage in healthy conflict to say what they really think? And after initial real awkwardness to get people to open up and say what they really think, the floodgates opened. As people started to feel more and more enabled, empowered to say what they really think. And do you know what? That leader was incredible. She was incredible because she stayed so graceful in the space of being criticized, or the processes and the systems being criticized. She stayed graceful, and after each person spoke, she said, "Thank you." Now, that for me is open-hearted, wholehearted leadership. It would have been so easy for her to just get defensive, push back, and say, "What about you lot?" It was such a lesson for me and the group, wholehearted leadership. Now, at the end of the session, we got them back in circle. I work with circles a lot. I believe in circles and the power of them. We got them back together after going through this conflict stuff. And we said, okay, same question. Does this feel like a psychologically safe space? Join me in the middle if it is. I step in, the leader steps in again, and 2 or 3 put a toe in. They put a toe in. So it's a work in progress, but it's starting to shift. And for me, the most powerful moment was when I asked the leader, "What's it been like for you today?" And she says, "I'm not going to lie, it's felt like I've had a right kicking. But I'm so grateful that people have felt safe to speak up." And you could see she looked like she'd had a right kicking. And then there was a beautiful moment when one of the team just turned to her after that and said, "You do know we're right behind you. You do know that we've got you back." And she was really struggling to fight back the tears. In fact, she didn't fight back the tears. You could just see what a big heart connecting moment that was for that group. So to become a wholehearted leader requires real bravery. To step into a space where you're open, vulnerable to being criticized, and to stand with grace in that space. So that's a little bit of a story around what is wholehearted leadership and the work that I do. Yeah, I just like to open with a story every now and just to bring it to life. All right, so back to my share screen. I'm going to do a little check-in. So in the chat box, because we want to know who's with us in this community. So could you type into the chat box? I know some of you have done this already. Some have just joined us. So where are you in the world? What is it that you do? That can be a job title if you want. You might not want to define yourself as that. What is it you do? And because there's going to be a bit of a music theme today, because Tim and his love of music and how he's used it in his book. What's the first record / tape / CD / download you bought? If you can remember. I know it was a while ago, Liam. So where you are in the world, what you do. Your first record. Let's have a look in the chat box. Hello, Heidi, Belfast. Paul Simon, yeah, great song, that one. Hello, Hanan, who's a coach. BSB, is that Backstreet Boys, Hanan? Could have got that totally wrong.
Yeah, it's Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, good. I don't quite know how I know that, but I do. Spin Doctors, some great songs here. Bros. Donnie's gone for Bros. Yeah, thanks. I like that, Donnie. You know, it's not, you don't define yourself as your job. You know, what is it you do in the world? How is it you show up in the world? Oh, Tola. Now, there's going to be some David Bowie references today. So you might be in with a good shout of a book, a free book. Thanks, Graham. Oh, yeah, I remember that track. Boom, boom, boom. Marlene is joining us from Leeds. Simon's gone for Pinky and Perky. That's my favorite of the day. Fantastic. So welcome to all of you. A real warm welcome wherever you are. So now you know who's in the space with you. You'll get a chance to get to know them a little bit more in the breakout activity. And I encourage you to use that chat box. Any comments, thoughts you've got, any references that you want to put in there that we might find useful, please use that as a chat space. Great, okay. Now we're checked in, it's time to introduce Tim Roberts, who is with us today. So I've got to know Tim through LinkedIn. I absolutely love LinkedIn. I think it's because for me, it's a space where you can properly connect with like-minded people quickly and just quickly organize a quick chat. Do you want to connect? I'm interested in your work. I want to talk about it. And I love how it's so simple. And that's how I've got to know Tim. And what I love about what he does on LinkedIn is he shares a lot of himself. He shares a lot of who he is. And not just the great speaker, coach, author now that he is. He shares a lot of his vulnerability. He shares a lot of his heart with the world, and is very generous with that. And I think that is very admirable. And so I was drawn to his online presence. And so just wanted to connect with him. We got on really well, and I invited him here, and here he is today. And he's got a book that's just come out called Break the Mold. And there's a lot of what he'll talk about, I believe, is very aligned to what wholehearted leadership is about, especially around, as he describes it, as breaking the mold, finding your own way, what's true to you in your heart about how you lead. And I think there's real alignment. What I also love about what Tim does is he brings in a lot of music references, which, do you know what? I love music, but I tend not to listen to the words because I get so absorbed by the music itself. And what Tim does brilliantly is he brings these lyrics out and brings them into his work, rather than like traditional leadership gurus, thinkers. He just goes to the music he loves and looks for inspiration in the words there. And I love that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Tim in.
Hello. Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that lovely introduction. It's lovely to meet all of you. It's always great to go and meet new people, new leaders joining in different networks. And I will pick up what you said about the music. So totally, you're now my new favorite person, having David Bowie as your first ever record. I'd probably also mention Graham as well and say, Graham, I'm not surprised if you're enjoying certain parts of my book if the Out Here Brothers were your first record. So yeah, thank you for inviting me along, Tim. I'm really
no worries, Tim. No worries.
And two Tims. I don't know what you've done to deserve that.
Doesn't happen very often. So I'm just going to do a quick chat now with Tim, just to give you a sense of who he is, what's his story, and what has led him to the work he does and the book he's written. So Tim, I'll just ask you that question. Good starting point. So what brings you here? How come you've written this book and you're setting out on this venture of yours of doing leadership your way? What's it all about?
That's a big question. What
brought you here? Yeah, what brings you here to this
So am I supposed to give it a bit of a boring answer? So I guess my day job, I'm a leadership coach and speaker. So this is part of the work that I would do. And yes, also an author. I think to answer that properly, what brings me here has to be answered by my background. You know, there's a bit there in terms of everybody, whatever you're doing here today, it's about what the experiences that you've had that have brought you to where you are today. And I know for me, I've not taken, I suppose, the traditional route in becoming a leadership coach and speaker, because I've got around 15 years operational leadership experience. I was one of the leaders who used to fit the mold. I was one of the knobheads who used to micromanage people and used to think that I should have left myself at home, and I would turn up and go, no, this is professional Tim today, and I leave personal Tim at home. And the reason I use that as an example in terms of what brings me here today is because I had the opportunity to choose differently. For me, as that leader, I was introduced particularly emotional intelligence and this ability to choose a positive response to your thoughts and feelings. And that's what created a passion in, created that spark in terms of what I do today and being a coach and helping others to do that. And yes, the book is all about that in terms of how leaders can break the mold and helping people to recognize that often what we get from leaders isn't a result of who they truly are. It's because of the molds that they're fitting and the perceptions and the thoughts and feelings that are triggered from the emotions that come with those molds. So yeah, I mean, look, some people like to call it an epiphany. I don't really buy into that. I think for me, I just learned that there was a different way of behaving and had this moment where I recognized, yeah, actually, I don't have to do everything that my thoughts and feelings tell me. And that completely changed leadership for me and gave me that passion and opportunity to then help other leaders so that they can make those positive choices too. And yeah, somehow I've ended up with a book being published. I work with exec leaders. I work with senior leadership teams. I speak at conferences and events like this. So yeah, for me, I would definitely trace it back to being introduced to emotional intelligence and recognizing, yeah, I choose how I behave. I can choose to just be my true authentic self.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Bit of a background there for you, just to put Tim in the picture of what brings him here. So I reckon, Tim, I'm going to hand over to you now. You've got some slides, I believe, and there will be an opportunity to ask some questions of Tim after the breakout afterwards. So we're going to have about 20 minutes of this, and then the breakout room, and then some questions for Tim. All right, so over to you.
Thank you, Tim. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that the technology works. And I've now shared my screen, so you should be able to see my screen sharing. I'm only really using slides as they are, just to bring some of the key messages to life, really, and help you to understand a bit more about that key message around Break the Mold. And it is all about how to be your true authentic self. That's the absolute key message. Yeah, I'm going to do that geek author thing, and I'm going to hold up the book because, yes, part of my talk, I'm going to bring to life the key messages in the book and share with you how you can break the mold. And yeah, as Tim said earlier, we're going to give away 2 signed copies. So there will be a quiz later on if you want to get 2 signed copies. And I will also share with you where you can buy the book from as well. So yeah, the purpose of my talk is to introduce you to how to break the mold, and that key element in terms of why being your true authentic self is so important to leadership, and why the world that we want, the cultures that we want in terms of leaders, why we have to enable them to be able to choose a positive response to their thoughts and feelings. Now, I am going to need some audience participation from you, so we're going to use the chat function for that. And we're actually going to start that way because before I get into Break the Mold, I just want to set the scene a little bit and get to know a bit more about yourselves and understand, I guess, your experience with leadership as well. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Yeah, typical coach. I want to start by asking some questions. And the first one is this, and I just want you to put it in the chat function. Now, I'm asking you to show me yours, so I will show you mine first, and I will put in the chat function my answer to this question. So what do you want from leaders? What are the key traits, characteristics, behaviors, attitudes? What are the key things that you want from leaders? And of course, for those of you here today who are leaders and have that leadership responsibility, obviously put yourself into this as well in terms of thinking what you want and expect from yourself. Now, I've done nearly a bullet point list, You might put this in a sentence, you might put it as one word, you might just summarize it, beautifully. Tim before was talking about psychological safety. Maybe that's something that encapsulates it, or the message around wholehearted leadership. But just pop in the chat function what it is in terms of that question. What do you want from leaders? And we'll start to get this so that we can get a greater understanding around the group in terms of exactly what it is that we want from leaders. Now, as some thoughts are coming through, what I would also encourage you to do is look at what everyone else is sharing. So put yours in, but don't just leave it at that. Actually look at what other people are in there. Sally's talking about walk the walk. Yeah, treat me like an adult. Yeah, Tina, it's about listening, having that integrity. Integrity is a bit of a theme actually here, isn't it? Yeah, for H, Hanan, it's about being human, empathetic. Yeah, process sometimes needs to be thrown out. Absolutely. Yeah, they don't help with leadership. What else have we got? Emma, it's that great word, authenticity. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that what we all want from leaders is very much encapsulated in that word Emma's put around that authenticity. Authenticity wins every single time. And that's one of the key messages I want to talk to you about in terms of break the mold and how it really helps leaders to be who they want to be. We also got trust in there. Yeah, open-mindedness, that fairness. Okay, lovely stuff. Brilliant. Right. So we're going to leave those in the chat function because we'll bring those to life as we go through the talk. So I want to flip this now because you can't always get what you want. So we also have to think about, what do we get from leaders? Now, I've gone again. I've shared mine. I've missed B off the word bullying. So I don't mean bullying, I mean the bullying. Now, to be fair, for this question, I could have put, what do you get from, and then in brackets, some leaders. And that's what I want you to think about is, what's been the reality for you? Because we want vision and integrity. We want authenticity. We want honesty. What's actually been the reality for you in your experience? And hey, yeah, think about what are some of the things that you've done as a leader. Because, yeah, I said before, I've micromanaged people. So I'm guilty of some of those things I've put in there. Now, the things I've shared are from my genuine experience. This isn't me trying to be holier than thou and saying, I would never do these things, and this is what everybody else does. No. This is from real experience. I share a lot of stories that back this up in the book. For me, yeah, I want feedback. Actually, I've had a lot of silence from leaders. I want honesty and transparency. I've been lied to many, many times in my career. I've also seen that bullying firsthand, and I've definitely worked with a lot of narcissists. And yeah, one of the stories I share in the book is that final bullet point I've shared that, yeah, I once got bollocked for wearing the wrong colour shoes. I mean, who cares what shoes you're wearing? The colour of your shoes don't make you a better leader. So also put in there what you get from leaders. And hey, if your experience has been only positive, then put that in there. This isn't me trying to put words in your mouth or trying to insist that the only thing we get from leaders is negative. Also think about maybe some of those positive things that you've seen. What else have we got? Okay. For Tina, yeah, a lack of professionalism. Yeah, we get fear, don't we, from leaders? Either that they have a fear that stops them being themselves, or they create fear for us. Yeah, that's survival of the fittest. They compete instead of collaborate. Yeah, fakery. For Sally, yeah, self-interest, meddling. Yeah, just let me get on with my job, please. You don't need to meddle in the things that I'm good at. For Emma saying they want one thing, but then becoming clear they actually want something else. And isn't that interesting what Emma's put? Because Emma put she wants integrity from leaders, and what she's got from some leaders is the complete opposite. I say one thing and do the other. So it's fascinating, isn't it, that we know those things that we want. Your H has experienced the narcissism as well. For Rebecca, yeah, hierarchy. Yeah, corporate bullshit, isn't it? Let's just lead by hierarchy. Yeah, putting down talented people. Yeah, this is why some leaders lose the best people in their teams, because they are scared of them. They see them as a threat, so they put them down. They block them even. For Emmy, yeah, having to prove everything. Oh, God, yeah. How many organisations have a cover your arse mentality where I do my job, but then I have to email 20 people just to prove that I've done it, because with fear of blame cultures or that complete lack of trust. For Marlene, yeah, people being selfish. Yeah, that bullying as well. Yeah, and that patronising element. Yeah, most people have been in a position of lacked consciousness. Thank you, Dawn. Donna, yeah. So they've tended to not come from a plate. Yeah, they've absolutely reacted rather than responding. And do you know, that really sums up a key point that I want to talk to you all today in terms of that break the mold, is that that's what often happens with leaders, is that they end up reacting, not responding. Because if you just think about everything that you've shared, no one would ever choose to do any of those things. If you asked a leader, what do you want people to say about you, or who are you? They would never say, I betray people, or I'm disrespectful, you know, or that I don't show people any kind of respect, or I don't build trust, or I bully people, or I bollock them for wearing the wrong colour shoes. Nobody would ever choose those things. So none of those things ever come from true authenticity. Nobody would ever actually choose to people to describe them that way. What they would choose and they would want is all those things we said before, that honesty, that integrity. And it's fascinating, isn't it, really? Because all of the things that you've shared there, you're not alone, either in what you want or what you've got from leaders. I have this conversation with many, many leaders, literally from around the world, and it often leads to those similar outcomes when I'm asking them those questions. And this really, for me, enhances this really important point that I want to make very, very early on in terms of leadership, is that in the good times and the bad times, people remember you for how you behave. If I'd have asked you to put in the chat function, tell me all the results that some of the leaders that you've got with you've worked with, tell me about the results they've got, how many projects they delivered on time, what profit they got, what percentage they achieved, we'd be here all day because you'd struggle to remember it. You'd probably try and make something up, or you might remember one thing. Conversely, if I ask you to fill the chat function with, tell me about the leaders you've worked with, how they behaved, the attitudes they showed, and the impact they had on you, you would be able to remember that very, very quickly. And our ability to choose what that impact is and choose our attitudes and behaviors comes from our ability to break the mold. Now, what's happening to a lot of leaders, and has been happening for many, many years, is that they end up fitting the mold. Tim talks about it before, about feeling quite disheartened with leadership, and for people that the bubbles are bursting in terms of they want leadership to be this, and the reality is in their organization it's something completely different. And what happens to leaders in particular is they fit the mold. The molds that come from the culture of the organization, by the examples that are set to them by other leaders around them, and most importantly, the molds that are in their own hearts and mind, that come from the perceptions as to how they should behave. Now, the reason many leaders do this in terms of fitting the mold is because fitting the mold is really easy, because doing nothing is really easy. If you allow it to, your human brain, which I know it's hard to believe sometimes, is the single most powerful resource on earth. Actually, it's also one of the most laziest things on earth. So if you allowed it to, it will work on autopilot all of the time, and it'll do the same things that you've always done, because that feels safe, that feels comfortable. And when leaders experience that, they end up fitting the mold. So they simply do what their thoughts and feelings tell them to do. They work on autopilot. They give up. They react rather than respond. And the world is full of leaders who have done exactly that. They're all the ones that you described when you answered that second question that I asked you earlier. They choose to fit a mold because they're used to doing things in a particular way, and they can't muster the courage, or they don't know how to muster the courage or the energy to do things differently. Now, in the book, I share lots of real stories, and those real stories are of real leaders that I've worked with, and either the impact that they have on me or what I've experienced firsthand. I'm a big believer in terms of how we can really enable this authentic leadership and the leadership one. We have to talk about the realities of leadership. Talking about the billionaire CEO and the person who's grown business from nothing, or the inspirational example of a leader, will only get us so far. They'll fill our hearts with joy, they'll inspire us. It's very hard to relate to that because you are not the billionaire CEO. You are not the person who inspires millions around the world. You are Tim, who's going to work tomorrow to deal with pissed off Rita, fed up Sue, and angry Bob too. So what we have to do is create that real world where leaders can be themselves, because that's what's going to help them in the situations that they face. Now, a really good example of a story that I share in the book ends with this punchline. Now, I'm not going to tell you the story because I want you to buy the book. I want you to read the book and experience it for yourselves. But the end of a particular story that for me really sums up when leaders fit the mold ends with this punchline. And so it's actually really funny for me recalling this story on a day like today because it was on a really hot day. And this encapsulates when somebody fitting the mold behaved in a particular way where they completely exploded and insulted and annoyed many people and ruined their relationships and their reputation whilst queuing up for a free ice cream. Now, no one goes to work to have a row in a queue for an ice cream van. Yet when people fit the mold, it's very, very easy to end up in that situation. And look, the moral of that particular story is that you don't have to do everything that your thoughts and feelings tell you to do. So for those of you here today that are leaders or you work in leadership development, this is one of the most important things that you need to say or repeat to yourself and the leaders that you work with. You do not have to do everything that your thoughts and feelings tell you to do. This is what makes people fit the mold. And where the real power lies is helping them to recognize that you choose how you respond to your thoughts and feelings. So your thoughts and feelings will do whatever they want. You never have to sit there and go, right, brain, now think this. Or, okay, heart, now feel this. It will just do it in whatever way it chooses to do. It'll be doing it right now. It'll be creating thoughts about this talk. It'll be creating feelings about your own experiences. You don't have to ask your heart and mind to do that. They'll do that automatically. Now, of course, when leaders are in situations that are challenging, that are negative, of course, they experience thoughts and feelings that come with that. And if leaders fit them all by doing what their thoughts and feelings tell them to do, that's when you get the narcissism. That's when you get the ignorance. That's when you get the childish behaviors where they patronize other people and they break trust and they don't build psychological safety because they're simply doing what their thoughts and feelings are telling them to do. And this is where our ability to break the mold enables that authentic leadership for us. And look, just to think about outcomes that specifically I've seen in organizations and leadership teams, in red, this is what happens when leaders fit the mold. It's not because they're a bad person. It's not because they wake up in the day and think, I want to make everybody else's day really bad, or because they want to have boring meetings or they want to have a blame culture. It's because they're fitting the mold of the culture around them. They're falling into that trap of believing everything that their perceptions tell them to do. Conversely, in blue is when people choose to break the mold. And the crazy thing is about this is everything that you can see it on the screen in blue, everyone has the ability to do it. You don't need theories and models and years. You don't even need years and years of experience. You just need to be a decent human being. You just need to be able to know who you truly are and allow that to inform how you develop the greatest power that you have as a human being. And that is your ability to choose how you positively respond to your thoughts and feelings. That's what emotional intelligence enables us to do. People don't need another quadrant or another Venn diagram. What they need is the ability to know who they truly are and then choose how they positively respond to their thoughts and feelings. So everything that you said before that you want from a leader, they know who they truly are. And in those moments when they're pissed off because there's a really big queue for a free ice cream, they can recognize, I'm not going to react. I'm going to choose a positive response. And I'm going to choose a response that enables me to continue to build the relationships that I want. And that's exactly what breaking the mold does for you. It enables you to be your true authentic self, not who other people want you to be, not your job title. And it means that you can stop relying on leadership approaches that don't work. And actually what it allows you to do is focus on the only thing that is always 100% in your control is how you choose to respond to your thoughts and feelings. Many leaders waste their time trying to change and control other people. You cannot do that. You can only change and control you. It always starts with you. And the more that we can develop leaders and enable them to do exactly that and be their true authentic selves, that's when we get exactly what we want from leaders. Now, I said this to you before about those of you who work in leadership development. One of the strong messages from the book is, and I myself as the author call the book the least leadership book you're ever going to read. Because leaders don't need someone else's theory. They don't need somebody else's model or 4 quadrants and styles and all that kind of stuff. They just need to be themselves. The only thing that any leader every day going to work needs to take to work with them is their true authentic selves. Yeah, the years of academic research, the brilliant people like Patrick Lencioni and Brené Brown, they will embellish people's leadership. They will help them to understand that it is a thing that they can read about, that they can develop. They can choose to see things differently. It isn't going to help them unless they align it with who they truly are, because that's where confidence comes from. Confidence is at its highest when you are your true authentic self. And when people are able to make positive choices that align with that. Now, to think about this, a key message in the book is that you are not your job title, you are you. So when you go into a breakout room shortly and get a chance to discuss this with some of your peers, trust me, nobody in that breakout room wants you to pretend that you are something you're not. They don't want you to be pretentious. They don't want you to come across that you've got this amazing job title and you have this wonderful life and you're better than them and you know everything. They just want you to be you with all your flaws and the way that you speak and the way that you look. That's all people want from you. And the more we can help leaders to get that greater understanding of who they truly are, then we will get what we want from leaders in terms of getting that authenticity and everything else that comes from that. Now, in terms of the book, I said to you earlier that a huge part of the book is about real leadership stories. It's about real life, because one of the things I want from the book, and it is a coaching book. It's not a teaching book. It's a coaching book. It's going to ask you more questions and you're going to get answers. And what I want people to be able to take from the book is to be able to go into their real lives as a leader and have that prompt that says, yeah, I don't have to behave like this. I don't have to behave like everybody else, because I can recognize I can choose a positive response to my thoughts and feelings. And the way that can be achieved, is through how to break the mold. And the part 2 of the book, if you like, is where I share those key coaching techniques. Graham mentioned one before, your no moan zone. That's about how to create a positive mindset for you and your team. Yeah, the circle of knobheads is in there. That's about building relationships. It's about you being able to choose. I will decide who I give my time and energy to. I'll decide who I allow to influence my thoughts and feelings, and I'll focus my time on the people that help me to be happy and successful. And yeah, there's 2 key habits in there for leaders in terms of being able to ask, don't tell, and to truly listen, linked to that coaching leadership style that I help leaders to develop. Now, the key coaching technique in breaking the mold is your map of the world. So this is something that I do with every coaching client and with leadership teams that I work with, because this enables you to go back to who you truly are. It allows you to move past the job title and all the perceptions and the challenging thoughts and feelings and be able to choose a positive response by knowing this is my true authentic self. And yeah, there's some questions on the screen you can see at the moment that build that map of the world. It's a key part of breaking the mold, because you can't be your true authentic self unless you know who you are as your true authentic self, unless you take the time to discover what your values are, what your beliefs are about the world, challenging yourself to decide what your purpose is. Your purpose, I'm going to point at you and everything when I say this, you and no one else in the world, your purpose is not what's on your job description. It is your job on earth. It's your choice what your purpose is. My purpose is quite simply to be a good dad and a good husband. That's it. And every piece of work that I do, every decision I make has to help me to achieve that purpose. Now, my purpose when I was 21 was very different, and our purposes change. And organizations who embrace authentic leadership create that space for their leaders and the human beings, the emotional creatures that they employ, to discover who they truly are. They don't tell them they have to choose the values that are stuck on the wall that nobody ever talks about, or when we spend thousands of pounds creating these values with a senior leadership team that don't live up to any of them and get stuck on a website to impress customers. No, they choose to go, no, you are a leader. What we want you to do is lead as you, to lead as your true authentic self. And that map of the world is what enables them to do that. Even the final part in terms of what are your emotive drivers, that's this element of leaders being able to recognize. That's why I have these thoughts and feelings, because when I'm in this meeting, the behaviors of other people piss me off because they conflict with my map of the world. Conversely, when I work with these people and I'm doing this piece of work, it makes my heart sing. They start to recognize their emotive drivers. That's what allows a leader to take the pressure off themselves. It's what allows a leader to go back to, I'm a human being first, and I'm an emotional creature. And one of the key things from building your map of the world that allows you to break the mold is it reminds leaders that the only thing that you are truly accountable for is living up to what you stand for every single day. Leaders aren't responsible for KPIs and deadlines and figures and targets. Absolutely not. And do you know why they're not accountable for it? Because every leader on this planet could quit their job today and someone else will turn up next week to do it. And then they become accountable for KPIs and everything else. The only thing that you're truly accountable for is living up to what you stand for every single day. And the key starting point of that is to build your map of the world, to know what you're accountable for, to know what you want to be able to live up to, recognizing this is who I am, this is what I stand for. Now, the key part of that, particularly in terms of the work I do, is understanding and accepting that emotional intelligence will get you further in life than anything else. Your emotional intelligence is what enables you to break the mold. It's what enables you to recognize that the culture around me, the behaviors around me are not who I am. So I'm not going to try and change that or blame others. I'm going to choose to be my authentic self. And that's where that true power of leadership comes from. And if you go back to what you all shared in the chat function when I started this talk, that's what enables us to get what we want from leadership, is that emotional intelligence, where we choose that positive response to our thoughts and feelings. So we're going to give you a chance to explore this now. Now, before we do that, if you want to go and buy the book or learn more about me, you can scan that QR code and Tim will share my details after today. So, do you know, I got told off the other day because every time somebody asks me where to buy the book from, I always go Amazon. And they told me off because they don't like Amazon. Well, it's all right. It's also available on Waterstones and the Book Depository and from my own website. So I was really surprised that I got told off because I keep saying Amazon. I didn't realize it was a bad thing. So yes, you can get the book from Amazon or other very good bookstores. There is a competition at the end where 2 people will win a signed copy that we'll post out to you early next week. But if you want to go ahead and buy it, that QR code will take you to that. And like I say, Tim will share my details after today. So let's give you a chance to talk to the most important people that are here, and that's each other. So we're going to put you into a breakout room. I'll hand over to Tim in a sec to do the logistics of it, and he'll tell you how many people in the room and how much time. When you go into that breakout room, I just want you to talk about these 2 questions. So what are the molds that you're expected to fit in your organization, in your life, in your role? You know, something that people say a lot to me is that, oh God, we didn't expect a coach to talk like that. I can't believe that you swear and you talk exactly as it is. Well, why not? That's me. Just because I'm a coach doesn't mean I shouldn't be me. You know, sometimes people go, oh, look at those pictures behind you. Nobody else has them. Like, yeah, that's just me. That's just a wall in my kitchen. Why should I change it because I'm a coach? So what are the molds that you're expected to fit, either through other people's behaviors that you experience or from what people say to you? And then also, of course, talk about, well, how will you break that mold? So what can you do to be your true authentic self? And what do you need to keep doing? You know, this isn't about saying you're not doing that already. What do you need to keep doing? So talk about the molds that you're expected to fit, and also how will you break the mold to be your true authentic self? So Tim, do you want to let them know the logistics of it all?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tim. How many do you want in a room? Do you want pairs? Do you want threes?
15. So yeah, do 3s actually, because then that'll be 5 rooms of 3. So then there's a nice number to the conversations.
Okay, one sec. There's going to be 2s or 3s. It's either that or 3s or 4s. 2s or 3s. Can I go for that?
Yeah, do 2s or 3s.
Yeah, okay. And how long do you want to give him?
What should we
minutes?
do? Yeah.
10 minutes or 15 minutes?
If we do 10, and then
minutes.
maybe 5 minutes on the molds, 5 minutes on how to break them.
Yeah, Okay, just one sec, folks. 10 minutes. There we go. So
I
we're
can
going to
hear
leave you
birds
to it.
tweeting away from somewhere.
We're going to leave you to it in your rooms. If you need anything, or you're stuck in there on your own or something, then send us a text, an email rather, or a message, and we will sort you out. All right, here we go. Looks like everyone's got at least.
I was going to say, what you might need to do is just check it, because it'll put me in a room, won't it, just to make sure they didn't get paired up with
Oh
me.
yeah, make sure you don't.
I've just ignored the invite, mate, but
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it might have paired me up with one other person.
Yeah, that's all right. They've got two.
Thanks, Simon.
Cheers,
Lovely
Simon.
to meet
Thank
you.
you. All right, so we've got a 2, a 2, a 3, and a 3. Let's just check that one there. All right, Heidi's on her own. So I'm going to move Heidi into room 6. There she goes. Olivier is gone somewhere.
You happy with that, mate?
Yeah, all good, all good. I like your slides. Cool. Very slick, a lot of energy. It's great.
Yeah, this is the bit where I love my job. So it.
Yeah.
Do you know, I was speaking to somebody this morning in a jacuzzi. It's a random story, innit? And he was asking me about what I did, and he straight away went, "Oh, you must be confident then to stand up on stage." And the joys.
Okay, welcome back, folks. Tim and I just having a chin wag there about dogs and children. So really, really good to see you again. I hope that was a good opportunity to start to engage with some of Tim's content, those questions that he set. So now we've got a little bit of space now for anybody to share what came up there, what arose, anything that you think was worth sharing, or any questions that you might have for Tim as well. So with the questions, if you could put them in a chat box, and that'll just help me to make sure that I get through them. But before the questions, anyone got any comments about what came up in your conversation? Just give us a hands up if you want to come in. Hanan?
I'll comment. So first of all, it's a really, really small world. Graham actually grew up on the street just behind mine. I used to play with his sister when we were little. We went to the same primary school.
No way. How cool is that?
That was really cool. Yeah. We talked about, we both work for housing organisations as well, which is crazy. But we were talking about how kind of like fitting the mold and the expectations and how people fear kind of like the leadership because of past whatever's happened in the past, and then people fearing it again and worried about, you know, are they doing things right? And we talked about having like a blame culture of people copying everyone into the email. We talked about that. We didn't really move on to the how to get out of that because we spent a lot of it catching up. But yeah, that's what we spoke about.
Thanks, Hanan. That's great that you've reconnected. And part of this is about building community of like-minded, like-hearted people. Let's bring in Emma.
Hello. Yeah, there was something there that came up that kind of links to that about the past leadership and how maybe for a leader, sometimes people in the team might not trust you as the leader, not because of you, but because of your job role. And I really liked that bit about separating yourself from your job title, because they might not, you might say, I want you to think for yourself and really mean it. But if a past person with the same job title as you've always said, I want you to think for yourself, and then you think for yourself and they go, why did you do that? You didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it. They're going to not trust the job role, but it's not a personal thing. It's kind of, so sort of working out how to separate yourself from your job role so that people in your team can trust you and not only see you as that leader, which has this sort of legacy of that kind of fitting the old leadership beforehand.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Emma, and similar to what H was talking about before. One of the things I always aim to try and help leaders with is exactly that. So recognise you and everyone around you, particularly people, they've got experience, not about how many years they've done a job for or where they used to work, an experience that creates an emotional tag. So you're right. So I know for me, an emotional tag for me, based on my past experiences, when I meet a CEO now, I have to make sure I break the mold in my own perceptions of them, because I've worked with 2 CEOs in the past that were absolute narcissistic knobheads. And that creates a vision for me of, are you going to be the same as them? And yeah, you're right. People have to be able to see that and go, right, well, if I'm going to ask them to think for themselves, I have to demonstrate behaviors that encourage that, not just say it. And yeah, something I always encourage leaders to do is when you're recruiting people into your team, actually get them to talk about what was the culture like where you worked before, what was your leader like, not to laugh at those people or to go, oh yeah, aren't they all silly, and we'd never do that. So what you can do is start to recognize, right, if you come from a culture where it's all empowering and our culture isn't that, what do I then need to do as a leader to make it work for you? And obviously, conversely, if they talk about, I was micromanaged, this was a culture, okay, well, here's how I can help you to evolve in this more open culture where this is how we work. Because every experience you have, your brain creates an emotional tag and it creates that perception. So yeah, it's being able to go, I'm not going to be my job title, I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah, I just thought that was I really liked the way that you phrased it like that, because it just kind of made me realise that people are bringing that previous experience and it's not attaching to you, but it's attaching to you in that job role, and they're going, oh, but yes, previous leaders have said this and they didn't mean it, so maybe you don't mean it, and not taking it personally then if they don't seem to fully trust you, because it's not you, it's them attaching to your job role.
Yes.
And that's just really kind of the way you expressed it. I kind of knew that, but it's just sometimes you hear it in a different way and it kind of just resonates.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's where that emotional intelligence piece is so important for leaders, of being able to do exactly what you said there, recognise that, choose that positive response.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Emma. Thanks, Tim, for your response there. Let's go to Marlena.
Hi, everyone. Again, Tim, what are the odds? It just happens that you put me together with my colleagues. Me and Justin worked on the same team until yesterday. So out of all the 15 people, you put us together. But luckily, we had Gemma. And Gemma works for HR, and she's a head of HR. So she kept us on our toes, and she kept it interesting. Otherwise, it would be boring. We discussed how actually our roles are a little bit similar, that because we are managing consultants and obviously Gemma works in HR, that we always expect it to be very professional and keep that professional persona, and it's really hard to bring yourself to work, your personality, because you need to stay professional. It's a client facing role, and Gemma deals with quite a lot of sensitive information, and she actually gave a really good example of going out and her peers or colleagues were saying, we can't really be honest in here because HR is in the room, and it just puts that really really bad spin on everything, that we don't feel like we can really drop the mask quite often.
Yeah, thanks, Marlena. The point about HR is a fascinating one, and I'm very lucky to get to work with a lot of senior leadership teams. I'm working with Robert Walters soon, their global HR leadership team. We were talking exactly that. So my question is, some of the challenges you're talking about from an HR point of view, how much of that is coming, excuse me, because you're fitting the mold? And what we were talking about there was, in HR, you're expected to give advice. You're expected to tell people what to do. So what happens is a lot of leaders go to HR and say, sort my people problems out. And then if HR do that for them, you're fitting the mold and creating that culture where that is what continues to be expected from you. And it is that awareness piece. That's the bit that it's got to start with. That's why I asked that question about what molds are you expected to fit, and looking at, okay, how do we break the mold? How do we change that? So how can we respond in our roles to create that role model piece, so that we should know we're not just going to tell you what to do, we're actually going to work with you to help you to solve your own problems. And that piece around the professionalism is such a challenge, that is it, particularly for leaders. And that is a classic example where people fit the mold, because we create this is professional. Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. Professionalism, there are traits that everybody would agree in terms of professionalism. Actually, the most professional you can be is if you are your true authentic self. And it's a cliche, but people buy from people. So if you're in client meetings, often the bit where you can break the mold there is go in and ask them a question, an open question. Go in and really listen to them. Don't go in with, here's what we're going to sell to you, here's what we think you should do. Just take the time to actually build a relationship, get to know them. Don't be afraid to put your hand up and go, oh, I might have called this wrong, actually. And create that, because otherwise what happens is in that client relationship, it's just two people fitting the mold. It's two people never being themselves. And then that doesn't last, or it fails. I know from my experience that clients who I work with repeatedly, often the feedback is, it's just because you tell us how it is, Tim, because you actually say that's corporate bullshit and that ain't going to work. And this is something you could think about. And actually share advice based on, it's not about me doing that with you. It's actually, have you considered this, or have you considered doing that first? And I think the bit I would recommend there in terms of what you just said there, Marlena, is really go back to the map of the world, spend a bit of time knowing exactly who you are, and then align your professionalism and how you respond to that. And then even if you're faced with 1,000 people who are fitting the mold, you're still doing it, because we have to remember, everyone else in the world will behave however they want. They'll do whatever they want. They'll have whatever attitude they want. That's not your problem. Your problem is how you choose to behave. Your problem is the attitudes that you choose to demonstrate. And the more you can actually align that with, no, this is who I am, the more that confidence grows, the more you're able to choose that positive response in terms of responding to whatever molds other people are trying to get you to fit.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Marlena, for the question. We've got time for one more. I think Dawny just had a hand up.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Tim. This is great. Thank you to you all so much. Tim, have you ever had an experience whereby you've worked with someone who's a sorry, I don't like to, it's so deductive, but who's living with a high degree of narcissism, and they actually haven't realized that until they've met you?
That's a big compliment to pay in a question, Johnny. That's a big compliment to pay in a question. Thank you. The answer is yes. And to be honest with you, what I would always encourage people to think about this is that's where the power of coaching needs to be realized, because there is, and I actually make this point in the book. So I always stress, when I use terms like narcissistic knobheads, and I also call a lot of people dickheads, I stress the point of that isn't me just criticizing people or doing it to be funny or to shock people or to say, oh, these people have, forget about them, they're lost people. It's remembering that perception for me comes from their behavior, and often it's because they've got no idea that that's how they're behaving. They actually don't realize that they're fitting the mold, and that's the behaviors that they create. So yes, and please don't think I'm trying to be a smart ass in terms of how I'll answer that question. The final story in the book answers that question, where I share a story about an exec client of mine who, he was bordering on narcissism. I think it would probably be unfair to term him with that, but his behaviors were getting him very, very close to being removed from the business that he'd worked, in his terms, man and boy, he'd been there for 17 years. And because he'd completely lost sight of who he is, and what had happened to him is he'd become a director. So he'd been promoted to the role that he'd wanted for many, many years. He'd been on this career progression. And when he got to that role, all he saw was director. So he changed his behaviors. He thought, now I'm a director, I can't have a laugh with people. I can't be myself. I can't give direct feedback. I have to sit in my office and shut the door. And that created probably 2 years for him where it was just an awful experience and for the people around him. And what I challenged him to do was go back to being himself, because I instantly recognized that's not you. The director title is not you. The line that he used to, I guess, encapsulate that was, he went back to being the Scouse lad from Kirby. because that's what he'd lost sight of. And he tried to live up to this perception and tried to be this director where he was taking it out on people. He was blaming other people for the things that were going wrong. And he completely alienated his management team and his wider team. And I chose to finish the book with that story because it's such a powerful example of you can lose sight of who you are. You can be one of the dickheads when you choose to put your hand up and go, I need to change because this isn't working for me. And I choose to a path of self-awareness, and I choose to get some difficult feedback, and I choose to hold the mirror up, and I go back to this is who I am, and then develop your emotional intelligence as a result of it. People can absolutely come back from the brink. They can change their behaviors. Some people never will. The 2 CEOs I talked about before, they never will. And that's their choice. I'm not saying I'm better or worse than them, or I'm right and they're wrong. That's just their choice. I think often what happens with leaders in CEO positions is they convince themselves they haven't got time how to be a leader because they've just got to run a business. They've got to create this profit and they've got to create this brand. So yeah, everybody can come back from the brink of that. It's about making those positive choices. So yeah, and again, please don't think that's just me trying to get you to buy the book. There's a genuine story in there about a real exec coaching client that went through exactly that, where he was absolutely on the brink and he brought himself back, not me. He brought himself back by embracing the challenge of going back to who he really is.
So do you find that you come up against shame much or not?
Against what, sorry, Donnie?
Shame.
Shame? Yes. It probably takes a while for people to admit that, or maybe realise that. And yes, they often I talk to a lot of either exec coaching clients one-to-one or team coaching when I work with a senior leadership team, and I'll say to them, your journey will probably have a dip somewhere, normally around the middle, where you start to recognize more about yourself and you start to take responsibility. And that can come from, where they might have to go, I am actually ashamed of how I behaved. And often what the words that come with that is they will then go, that's not me. Actually, I can see why I did it because I was under pressure or did this. Or they might go, I don't even know why I did that. And I am, whether it's, they use different words, don't they? They might use ashamed or embarrassed. And the power there is continuing to work with them so they can turn it around. And whether that's going back and admitting the mistakes or being able to say, right, this is the culture that we're now going to create. And also Emma was talking about before, the key thing there, what I really encourage leaders to do is remember, you can't click your fingers and it changes. So learn about yourself, recognize who you truly are, and then behave in a way that aligns with that and do it consistently. One meeting, one-to-one doesn't solve it. You've then got to do it the day after, the week after. And it's important to point out, this is about turning people into robots. It's just allowing them to go back to the emotional creature that they are and then embrace that and choose a positive response. Because as a leader, you're not up against targets, you're not even up against competitors, you're just up against your emotions. That's all a leader faces. And the more you can help them to recognize that, they then can choose that positive response to it.
And Tim, how long, if you're working one-on-one, how many sessions would you work with to generalize?
I tend to work with execs over 12 months. And within that could be 6 sessions, and we meet bi-monthly. It could be 8 sessions. Sometimes they need 10 sessions. But for me, I look at it more as okay, let's do a 12-month journey and let's look at where you are now, where you want to be. And with a team coaching, that tends to be a 6-month program. And then that decides what happens next. So that might result in one-to-one coaching, or it might result in another 6 months of supporting them.
So Tim, thank you, Donnie, for the questions. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. Tim, do you want to share your screen of how people can connect with you?
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, I've just shared this just to help you to understand a little bit more in terms of what I do. So the key part for me is around that coaching piece. So either through the exec coaching, the one-to-one, or the team coaching. Team coaching for me is becoming more prevalent because I think people are realizing the value of it. I think people are now realizing that it's not about sticking a leadership team in a room where somebody tells them what to do and gives them another theory. Actually, let's get them to talk. let's get them to open up about it and they decide the culture for themselves. So that is becoming much more prevalent for me. That's becoming a lot of the work that I do. Alongside that, I do, if you like, the more traditional leadership development programs, which focus around enthusing your leadership, which is all about emotional intelligence leadership, and also helping people to develop a coaching leadership style. That's not the leader as a coach. That's about looking at how you as a leader can demonstrate that coaching leadership style, or leadership approach rather, to the people that you lead, how you can choose the right time to demonstrate coaching. And I also work with a lot of clients who ask me to do the learning experiences, so virtually or face-to-face, and then they might run 5 or 6 of them throughout the year, and they open it up to all of their colleagues. And the 2 key ones that I do there are about your emotional intelligence and your personal brand, and enabling people to be able to build that personal brand on who they truly are. And I've obviously linked to what I've done today. At the top of the list there is, I'm an inspirational speaker. So I'm very happy that conferences are returning face-to-face, and I can get my loafers on and get on stage and actually be with people. I will speak virtually for as long as people need me to do. There's nothing better than being in a room with people. Sorry, that's just how I know from my experience. That's how you bring things to life. So I'm very happy that I'm getting back on stage with people. And you can see my website on there. So if you want to subscribe at my website, I send a couple of emails out to subscribers every single week. One of them looks at how to break corporate bullshit, and the other one looks at how you can break the mold. So there's a bit of added value there. And connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I tend to share my stuff on social. That's how Tim and I met.
So Tim, thank you so much. You've got 2 books to give away. Now we were going to do an online quiz, which was going to be a little bit convoluted. So I think we're going to have to simplify it, given we've got 4 minutes. So Tim, I would suggest that you ask one of your questions, and we'll just do it in terms of chat box response. So fingers at the ready, folks. Fingers at the ready. Tim's going to ask you a question, and it's got 3 or 4 possible answers to it. Whatever you think the answer is, type it into the chat box. If you get in and it's right, we'll look at the ones that are right. Whoever got in first and second gets the books.
So I'm going to put the question, then I'm going to give you the multiple choice. So please watch out for the multiple choice, and then you can just put A, B, or C. So let me put the options in first. So there's the question. Don't Google it. Now I've got to be able to spell.
I think I've got this on the screen. Hang on. No, forget it.
So I put the question in the chat function. Unsurprisingly, it's about David Bowie. Interestingly, the answer to this question is actually the final words in my book, my first book, Break the Mold. David Bowie finishes the book. Because as Tim was referring to before, something I've done in the book is I use music lyrics rather than the same old quotes. So I use the lyrics that inspire me.
So the winners.
Has everybody answered? Because I don't want to give the answer away until everybody's answered.
Well, we've got, unbelievably, only 1 person got it right.
I know.
So let's go with Heidi is the winner of one of the books.
Heidi got it right. So I'll have to ask you another question now.
So give us another one.
Complete guess, and I was last as well, but delighted because I was going to buy it anyway.
Great
so
stuff.
That's great.
So Heidi's got
Thanks,
one.
Tim.
Give us another question, Tim.
Right, hang on. So again, I'll put the question in and then I'll give you the options.
I think we've got some winners already.
I've been a bit naughty with this one.
The answer was C, wasn't it? Style Council.
Yeah, I've been a bit naughty because I gave the jammers the other option.
It looks like Rebecca Field. Rebecca.
It is Rebecca.
How's the book?
It
Unlucky
is indeed
Liam.
the Style
Just missed
Council.
out.
Thank you very much.
So how do they get those, Tim?
So best thing to do is if you want to email Tim with your addresses, and then Tim will share them with me, and I'll drop you a little note to let you know they've been posted out, and then they'll arrive in the post to you next week.
Yeah, or is your email on that contact?
I can put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
There you go. So yeah, you can email me direct if you like, Heidi and Rebecca, and I'll get them out to you next week.
So folks, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for Tim. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Really, really great meeting you all. Thank you very much. And yeah, please do connect on LinkedIn. Let's stay in touch.
Great. And as a final thing, I'm just going to launch a poll for you guys. So if you are interested in this concept of wholehearted leadership and how to develop yourself, perhaps develop teams, develop a whole culture of wholehearted leadership, then just answer the poll. Yes, you want a follow-up call from me, or no thanks, not on this occasion. And then I'll contact you to talk to you more about how you might develop wholehearted leadership where you are or in yourself. Thank you for your responses. I'll leave that open. So thanks again, Tim. Thanks for you guys for showing up, the most important people, for showing up with your whole hearts and with your willingness to connect and find out more about how to step up wholeheartedly, consciously, and courageously in the world. So we'll hope to see you next month. Take care, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Keep smiling. Keep being you. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Sorry, I can't.
You're right, Heidi.
Sorry, I am trying to leave. It won't let me.
Going to
You're
kick you out.
trapped.
I know, with the Tims. Thank you for a great session. See you again.
Take care,
Thanks,
Heidi.
Heidi. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Nice one, Tim. That was awesome.
Yeah, happy, mate. All done.
Yeah, really good. Let me just stop the recording.